Really grateful that you could stay with us this morning on the AM show. It's now time to bring you what's happening in the news. As usual, the papers are on a break, but we will get onto myjoyonline.com for the news stories. The top story on the site: football legend Pele dies at the age of 82. And it's quite an emotional moment there. My colleague Joseph Akable has joined me. I never grew up watching Pele. I don't know if you did.
No, I didn't.
But we've seen his works. We know his story. I remember just after Argentina won the World Cup and the debate started about who is the greatest of all time. And then those who say, please, don't even start talking. They argue that Pele is the greatest of all time. I have seen a video where he is supposedly watching the last game of this year's World Cup between Argentina and France. But that time he was extremely frail. And I think he just held on a little while to see if Brazil could win that. And that's why the boys were really broken when they couldn't.
Yeah. I remember when they advanced from one stage of the competition to the other, they had these shirts that they held to wish him speedy recovery. He was in the hospital then. I'm more familiar with the other Pele, our own Abedi Pele.
Yeah.
Interestingly, got his name because of this legendary figure. And yesterday I saw a write-up about how Abedi Pele was so good, such that right from his childhood, all those who saw him play called him Pele, and it grew all the way onto him. And when he ended up at Marseille, the name still went on, and he always played official name as Abedi Ayu Pele. So, with that in mind, and we all know how good Abedi Pele was, that should tell you how good the actual Pele was. and I also saw another footage of compared skills of Messi, Ronaldo, Zidane, a number of players. Just those kind of skills that a lot of people will look to there and they'll say, okay, that's the Zidane skill, or that's the Messi skill, that's the Ronaldo skill, and all those skills were being done by Pele, and to have won the World Cup 3 times. And the interesting thing about him is when he came onto the scene, Brazil had never won the World Cup before. So it was during his period that they won it continuously for 3 times.
Oh, wow.
So it was during his period that Brazil actually became the superpower of football that we all know Brazil to be today.
Really sad moments, and thinking that, well, we could have crossed over into the new year and all of that. But hey, like I said, from the news we were hearing, the stories that were breaking, it just appeared that Pele was just holding on a little while longer so that he could stay till the end of the World Cup. And wrapping up on this conversation, I don't know, Joseph, if you've seen that snapshot of the CNN discussing Pele's death with a picture of our own Abedi. And there are people on social media who are saying that, how could CNN get it wrong? How could CNN get it wrong? But I mean, I just think that we should just do you that service of explaining to you how that happened. And so the CNN was discussing, like we've just done, players who got their names because they exhibited skills like Pele. And that is the only reason why you see Abedi's image then. So nowadays, people watch TV without really listening. So we just had to put that in. All right, so that's the top story on My Joy Online. Let's go to other stories on the site. And there are quite some disturbing ones there having to do with murder or alleged murder. There's one about a 2-month-old baby found dead in a well at Asinfosu, and another of a body of a woman suspected to have been murdered found on a farm in Impape, which is in the Saboba district of the northern region. She is believed to be a mother and in her 30s. The matter has been reported to the police, and a team has been dispatched, I beg your pardon, to the crime scene. Joseph, you are our court correspondent, and you hear some of these stories when you go to court, murder, alleged murder. But this year, 2022, what have been some of the highlights from court for you?
I think if I'll put it at the very top, I'll limit. Interestingly, I'll select Aisha Wang. Yeah, I mean, it's just because of the whole circumstances surrounding that particular matter. I thought it was quite interesting, and also because of the role or the discussions that surrounded illegal mining that came up yet again, and in the height of the nation attempting to have the conversation about illegal mining once again, then all of a sudden we hear of this individual who was virtually the poster boy of sorts of alleged illegal mining poster girl, if you want to put it that way, just resurfacing and being back in the country. Yeah. I thought that was quite an interesting one. Another interesting one for me would be the Atuesian matter. Yeah,
Definitely.
I mean, it was the first case involving the collapse of the banks that the state took to courts. I mean, the only conviction they could secure was that of Atuesian. The other accused persons were found not guilty, but we reached an agreement of sorts, having Atuesian admit to the offense at the very tail end of the case when the court was coming to read judgment, and now decide that, okay, it's going to refund the money to the states. I mean, there are those who disagree on whether that satisfies them, but I thought that case was also equally interesting.
But it was also dramatic because we're told that he actually cried in court. Yeah. There were moments where he spoke in tongues. So the Atuesian case was quite a dramatic one.
Yeah, I remember a quote that someone shared with me. It was one of the proceedings from court where he was asked about what he is, as in the work he does, and he was talking about being a thought leader, an entrepreneur, a solution finder, among other lots of words describing himself. I mean, I thought that was quite interesting, and I mean, the expectation of everyone is that he's able to make the money available as per the timelines that has been fixed, because the courts in the last decision did indicate that in the event that he does not refund the money, it will mean that he will have to end up in jail. Let me read to you what he said when he was asked what does he do. He said, "I am the talk of the drive of the finance minister, a true entrepreneur that creates out of nothing a businessman, capacity to assume risk. In other jurisdictions, what I do is called the risk taker, and in other common reference, they refer to what I do as an engine of growth for economics. And so, my lord, I could have easily said an entrepreneur, but what I do is bigger than that. I could have said I'm a businessman, but what I do is more than that. I could have said that I am the anchor as an active player, as an engine for the Ghanaian economy. But I rather submit to refer to myself as a destiny carrier of this nation."
What was the reaction to that? How did the court react? How did the judge react?
Just like the way you reacted. I mean, we were all like, okay, interesting. and it's one of those things that when you are done hearing, okay, you still have to say, okay, what is he again?
Yeah, because so what did you say? Like, okay, in one word, how would you describe yourself? Yeah. All right, Joseph, so talking about the courts, there's another story on myjoyonline.com about Akufo-Addo inducting 2 Supreme Court judges into office, and I'll bring you just some highlights from that story. President Akufo-Addo on Wednesday swore into office 2 newly appointed Supreme Court judges, charging the duo to help strengthen the development of the nation's constitutional and other jurisprudence in the Apex Court. The judges, both promoted from the Appeals Court, Justice Barbara Frances Aka-Ayinsu and Justice Samuel Kwame Adibu-Asiedu, succeeded the late Justice Samuel Kofi Mafo-Sao, who died on August 10, and Justice Yawa Powell, who retired on August 2, 2021. Also, for the judiciary, there's been quite a lot happening. I remember that some other Supreme Court judges were vetted in Parliament. Some too had issues, but eventually went through. Can you just run us through?
Yeah, so there's Justice George Kumsin. He was quite crucial during the Ejura proceedings, if you remember. In fact, there was a petition that was sent by the Fix the Country group to the parliamentary committee that they shouldn't approve him. So we don't know whether that is what has influenced he not being approved. So he's not been approved by Parliament. The Appointments Committee report was only in respect of Justice Samuel Asiedu and Justice Aka-Ayinsu. So those 2 have been cleared. And the other one is Justice Ernest Gewu from the Volta region. He's a High Court judge who was being elevated from the High Court straight to the Supreme Court. We know that some time ago, a couple of years back, he contested as a parliamentary candidate on the ticket of the NPP. That also came up strongly.
That was an issue of contention.
During the vetting. And so he was also not, it's not been approved yet. He was not captured in the report. The report was only in respect of the 2 individuals that have been elevated. And so, but the president, during his speech on the event, made a point. Apparently so there have been 4 vacancies in recent times. 2 of the judges just retired, I think between October and November, 2 of them again, aside from the 2 that these 2 individuals went on to replace. So, I mean, we know that Justice Mafo-Sao unfortunately died, and Justice Appel. Then there's Justice Agnes Doji, and there's one other, Justice Onyenuga. So those are the 4 individuals who have left the bench. And so the president expressed the expectation or the hope that these other two will also receive the approval, then they'll be sworn in to take their seats on the bench as well.
Yeah, there's another story which is of key interest because we are wrapping up the year. Tomorrow, God willing, will be 31st, and many Christians will go to church. We know the police has sent a reminder saying, look, we are cautioning you about our directive on what it refers to as illegal communication of prophecies. Well, there's been a lot of reaction to that. There are those who say that, look, it didn't need to take the police to come and say this. What are all these Christian organizations doing, or Christian groupings, the Christian Council, the Charismatic Council? But there's a Kumasi-based bishop who is saying that, look, the Christian Council cannot control pastors, okay? But even from the legal perspective, Joseph, can anybody really control a religious grouping or an organization?
I mean, it'll be very difficult. I mean, the only option that will be available is instances where the actions of the pastors are contrary to the law.
Right.
I mean, there are issues about causing fear and alarm and all those offenses. And when the police commenced this, should I say, crackdown of sorts from last year, you recall that is when we got that prophecy about Umofia from, I think, Nigel Gacy. Yeah, I mean, instead of, we don't know if you're still talking about Ghana, but that was what he used to do. I mean, I think over the years, there have been concerns from people about these end-of-year prophecies and hearing that this person will die and this person will die. I think the greatest one that was really of concern was the one that related to one of the religious leaders. And that I mean, urged people to call for some action to be taken. And since then, we've seen the police try to deal with it. So it's still a thorny issue and a very difficult arena for the police to navigate around.
Yeah, but how would you rate their handling of it?
I think so far maybe if it were 10, I would say maybe 4 over 10. I still think they should try and use the approach of engaging the church as they try to do when this IGP took over. I try to engage them. I think they should meet those, especially the pastors who are in the prophecy business. They should try and engage them. I think there's a way to communicate. There's a way to communicate and not cause that kind of panic. That's
maybe follow Jesus' example by giving it in parables.
Perhaps, or like the prophets of old. Sometimes they go to the kings and talk to them.
But and I think that's the challenge, and that's why some of these. That's what I think. Some of them take advantage of social media because it is now difficult to get access. I mean, you can't just walk to the president and say, "I have a prophecy for you," or walk to the vice president and say, "I have a prophecy for you." So you want to use the power of technology to deliver it.
If it's a prophecy, because there are two ways to look at it. For instance, if it's a prophecy that requires that the man of God can take certain steps on behalf of the individual to avert that calamity that's supposed to happen. I mean, I think the prophet can on his own do that. In the event the person is supposed to undertake certain actions, I still think, I mean, it depends on the caliber of man of God, because I can't imagine if it relates to the president meeting every single man of God who have a dream or prophecy about the president. I mean, that's a tall order. It's impossible. So there has to be some certain limits of sort.
Yeah, interesting. And as you're talking about prophecies, my mind is just racing because I'm going through all the Bible stories that I know. And I can't seem to find any necessarily where the prophet of God took an action on behalf of the people. It was usually you as an individual who had to take an action. And also, usually it will be that sometimes it's just for you to know, not necessarily for you to take an action. If you choose to look at Hezekiah, for example. So the prophet goes to Hezekiah and says, God says, put your house in order because you're going to die soon. Hezekiah on his own decided to pray. So the prophet delivers the message and then walks away, right? And on his way, God says, go back and tell him. Because I've heard his prayer, that's Hezekiah, go back and tell him that I've extended his years, right? Okay. Someone just said preach. So I'm just remembering all my Bible stories.
So I mean, it means that he didn't accept his fate has been done.
And so I think that, I mean, this is a conversation we've tried to have even here. I mean, I remember on shows we're talking about dreams and I just think that it's people should just acquaint themselves with some of these things, And there are some people who've heard prophecies, like Paul. He was in a meeting once, and someone gave him a prophecy, and it wasn't wrong, It was an accurate prophecy, but the person's interpretation of it was wrong. He said that, I think he illustrated that Paul was going to be bound or something. He was going to enter some calamity, and so he shouldn't go to the next town that he wanted to go to. And Paul still went ahead. It was just information for him to decide on his own what he wanted to do. So yeah.
I think visions have always been part of us since time immemorial. And we all don't like the uncertainty surrounding us, but sometimes the visions can put us in a lot of
stress,
discomfort. Yeah, I mean, especially the ones about death related. That this was going to happen.
But then we'll be wrapping up on this shortly. But then the big question again is the "and so what" question. So this example I gave of Hezekiah, the prophet went straight to him as an individual. What is it of benefit to everybody if I come and say that person A or person B is going to die next year? Like, so what? Yeah, how does it benefit me as an individual?
The answer would be the access problem you raised earlier. That I wanted to tell them behind.
But interestingly, some of these people who do this actually have a lot of political influence and access.
So, yes, they do.
So for such people, I don't think that would be an excuse.
I agree with you.
Why would you come and tell me that person A or person B would die? Well, what benefit is it to me? Unless you're trying to say or prove that, I see from God. It's like making a point. And anyway, don't let me go into that controversial arena this morning. So Joseph, the year is wrapping up. People are having fun. There are major concerts happening. A lot of our brothers and sisters from outside the country have arrived. I saw a photo of Meek Mill.
Yeah,
he's in Ghana.
He actually performed at the Afro Nation yesterday.
Okay.
Yeah, Burna Boy also performed at Afrochella last night as
well. Okay.
Yeah, Burna Boy. Yeah.
Okay, you've been following it.
Oh yeah. I actually attended a few. I have a couple that I always do, like Money Festivities and Walla Fest. Those are the two that are always on my calendar. I don't miss those ones.
Okay.
Yeah, but the others I just try to follow from afar. And I think at this point we need to commend the Tourism Authority and government for that matter. I think in the last 4 or 5 years, we've seen Ghana become the December or Christmas destination.
Yeah.
I mean, we have concerts after concerts, big people. There's this other biker, this global icon biker who's also in Ghana. I saw videos of him on the streets with the bike doing his thing, with people all the way following him. You have musicians. I mean, there are a lot of people, Chance the Rapper, all those guys are all in town having various concerts. And so I think we should try and continue with that, to continue to, get some revenue.
And I think that it's good you mentioned the consistency, because when we started this with the Year of Return, that was an event. That was major because we were commemorating, was it?
I think about 400 years.
400 years since the first slave ship left. And we had Nancy Pelosi here. We had Steve Harvey, we had great people, but the big question was, would we be able to continue? And I think that we have shown that we have the capacity to do so. And so kudos to all those who are involved in making Christmas, Ghana, the Christmas destination for the rest of the world. So what are you looking forward to in 2023?
I think first would be good health. I think this year, for me personally, on a health level was very difficult. So I expect very good health next year. Then the second will obviously be finances. The economy was battered. Just a couple of minutes just before I came, I went to fill my tank, and I was actually happy that I was able to fill it for the first time in a while because the prices are coming down.
Yeah.
So, even though the EIU and all those guys seem to be suggesting that things may not go as we all expected to, we can ask for grace and mercies that we're able to pull through. Then religious growth and fulfillment in life and career and all the other things that you wish for me that you can't say to me. How about you?
Joseph, I do the questioning here, but like you said, it's very important that we all have had quite a year when it comes to health. And that's why when you said health, I was nodding, because it's been hard. And for those of you who are consistent viewers of this show, you know that there have been times that I've been off. There have been times that I've even been struggling to speak on air, coughing and all of that. So we trust that next year will be kind towards us and God will show us mercy in regards to our health. And of course, the economy. That is a really important one. And I know that as we're going into 2023, there are a lot of you parents who are really cutting down on costs, because you know what's coming up with school fees and other things that you have to cater for. we trust that it will be a good year for all of us. And I really hope that next year will be more relaxing and stress-free. You know, there's just been a lot of ups and downs for many people, but we just hope that next year will be kind to all of us. And I pray that you will be alive to consistently and continuously watch us here on JoyNews and make us your #1 choice. So, Joseph, that'll be it, but I'm happy you could join me to do this morning. And well, I've been told to go a little more because we don't really have you all the time. So I've been asked to milk you. Okay, so there's one on the OSP causing reversal of discretionary discount on free on-board value of goods. Reminds me of what happened earlier this year with that company that was that was cited for undervaluing products and all that. But Joe, the Office of the Special Prosecutor, seen more work than before?
It's very tough. I think the current OSP has good communication. I tend to prefer to judge prosecutors with the outcomes, and we know that with Labianca, I was able to recover some 1 million cedis for the GRA. A number of prosecutions ongoing. I will still wait to see the outcomes by way of convictions, and that will be what I think, or by way of recoveries or corruption prevention. That, I think those should be the yardsticks. And so far, I would just say that he seems to be on the right path in terms of laying the accurate foundation, but I will just wait a bit more on that. The bit about the latest decision concerning the reversal of the discretionary discount, it has some implications for those who be importing vehicles next year. I mean, the prices will be obviously higher simply because of how discretion has been abused over the period, and now that has been taken away completely, and it comes with its own challenges for us. And so, yes, the GRA is trying to rake in more revenue. The Special Prosecutor is also trying to get his work done and also take credit for this latest development as well.
All right, and there's one on your school, University of Ghana tops Ghana's university rankings, and it reminds me. So it's very interesting in our newsroom sometimes when all these boys who went to Legon and KNUST and UCC are fighting over which school is the best. I'm sure this settles the debate for you. Are you happy about it?
That's always been settled. I mean, to be fair, the last 3 or 4 years, University of Ghana, things were not going quite well. So that was when they fell in the rankings. But the 4-year period that I was at Legon was always #1 in Ghana and among the highest in Africa. It's been that way for a while till there was a change after Professor Aite left. If I'm going to be very specific, Professor Aite left the period till Professor Nana Bamfu took over. That was the period that Legon descended and went all the way down. And so for me, from my period at Legon, this is consistent with Legon. And I think, there are other universities in Ghana that I admire, like Ashesi University. Yeah, I think Ashesi is a modern university. I think if I had my way and I'm going back to do an undergraduate program, I would like to go to Ashesi. I think it's fantastic. But if you are going to do public university, I think it should be Legon.
Your school will be proud of you. Yeah, you're a good example of what Legon does to individuals. So there's another interesting one on WhatsApp. Let's just open that story. WhatsApp ending support for nearly 49 Android and iPhone models on January 1. So can we open that story and get the details? Right, so I will try to open that in a bit for you. But this has always been coming.
Yes,
we've always known this.
Phones.
Yeah, and I strongly believe that it is a way for these phone companies to keep making money. Because they'll tell you that, okay, some of the models, the way they are created, they cannot support new softwares and new technologies. And so, if, for example, if you're holding an iPhone 5 or 6, you can update your iOS after a certain point. It's almost nearly impossible. So let's just bring you details of that story. WhatsApp will be ringing in the new year by ending support for some older smartphones from Sunday, January 1, including Apple's iPhone, Samsung and Huawei phones, some 49 devices, older smartphone models. Those in question now were released about a decade ago, will no longer be supported by this service, meaning WhatsApp updates will no longer be possible on devices still running an operating system older than Android 4.1 and all iPhones not yet running iOS 12. This change means the company won't support these devices with updates, meaning bugs and other issues may crop up over time without any fix available. Users will receive an alert from WhatsApp if the function of the app will be affected. So this is just by way of information for you. And don't say that, oh, I bought my phone just yesterday, so I'm not affected. Keyword is released about a decade ago. So you should be checking your phone to be sure that you don't fall in that category. If you begin to see any of these issues or bugs with your WhatsApp, then you should know that.
So it's an interesting story. I mean, I'm looking. There's a list of the phones down there. So there's Apple iPhone 5. There's the iPhone 5C. There's the HTC Desire 500. I mean, I remember the HTC Desire 500 so well. I mean, these are phones that a couple of years ago they were like the ish. Like you save up and you're trying to get it and your money still can't get it. And you have to go and try and get a second-hand one. Maybe I don't know. I think the companies they simply want to fade them completely and have people buy their new products, because either than that, I still feel like the old WhatsApp versions they should be allowed to use on those devices.
Yeah, and that's why it's saying that you won't be able to update your WhatsApp version, but I'm just sure after a while it will give you problems. That's what I think. And WhatsApp has become such an integral part of our lives, and so you know what these companies do? They get you hooked onto it, and then you have no choice but to try and adapt to the changes within the technological space. So for those of you who use all these phones, it's quite a tall list. You can just get onto myjoyonline.com to find out if your phone, Galaxy S3 Mini, Samsung Galaxy Trend 2, if you're a victim, you may just want to start saving up now, and you've had enough for Christmas. Please just try and save up to upgrade your phone so that you don't suffer in 2023. And before I let you go, finally, Joseph, today we are asking our viewers to rate their worst performing and best performing ministers for this year. Who are those for you? Put you on the spot.
Yeah, best will be very difficult to.
Okay, it has been for most of our analysts. They're unable to find a best performing minister, but it's easier for them to find out those at the bottom.
At the bottom, where they mention the finance minister?
Mention finance ministry.
Oh, Furiata, it has been a tough year for Furiata. Very tough. In terms of best, I'm still trying to figure out the best, but it's really very difficult. Very difficult. I don't think anyone really sticks out for me as being the best minister. Maybe if push comes to shove, I may settle on the energy minister, just because my lights have been on for a while. I mean, that's the only reason why I will settle on him. Initially, when he came in, there was a period, I think about a month into a little over a month, where there were outages in parts of Accra. There was a little bit of load shedding at some point. Then in the Ashanti region too, they had very serious problems.
Yes.
And he kept assuring that it was going to be a thing of the past, and people still expressed doubts. I mean, I think we all know that it's done and dusted. My lights I don't remember the last time my lights went off. The last time I went to him recently was just off for a couple of hours. And when I even got to him, there was one, I wasn't even worried.
Yeah,
I mean,
because you knew it would come back.
Anyways. Yeah. So that was once in like 6 or 7 months. I mean, I think if I have to settle on someone, he'll be my pick. I mean, for the West, I think for the West, there are varying degrees of poor performance that we can rate almost every other person, including the finance minister, who I think initially when he came into office in 2017, I think he did quite a good job. I put him there because of his insistence on staying in office, despite everything that's happened. And I believe that even for the sake of a breath of fresh air, if I were in his shoes, I would step away. So, I mean, we all know how the economy is doing, and he's the one in charge. There's no one else to blame if the things are not going well.
Thank you so much, Joseph, for doing this.
Thanks.
And all the best in the coming year. Well, we've heard from Joseph. We'd like to hear from you. Later on in the show, you get the opportunity to share your thoughts and views on who the best and worst performing ministers of 2022 are. Do stay. Up next is AM Sports.